Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Lau with Kenchan Crafts. In today's video, I will be sharing my preferences for fountain pens. I have about 20 topics or like 20 areas of preferences, what I prefer, why I prefer it, and if it's changed over time. A lot of these will probably be a little bit controversial because it's like a this or that. There are obviously in-between stuff as well, but if you are interested in learning my preferences and just also interested in talking about your fountain pen preferences, this is the video for you. Let's just start off with the very first one. So fountain pen preference number one, flat tops or cigar shaped pens. So I started my fountain pen journey loving flat top pens. It's always been the case for me. So like my Sailor fountain pens or flat tops, the Sailor Pro Gears, I've always preferred those over the Sailor 1911 cigar shapes. A lot of my beginning pens were flat tops, like the Lamy, the Twisbys, Ecos, and now it has changed quite a bit to where I also prefer cigar shapes in certain brands. So for example, my Aurora 88 pens, I prefer Aurora 88s over their flat top Optima versions. I prefer flat tops or cigar shapes depending on what model they are. Sometimes they're better in one way than the other, and so I have come to appreciate both flat tops and cigar shapes. The next one is gold or silver trims. So obviously there are more trims than just gold and silver. The other trims that I know of are ruthenium, which is the black coated trims. There's also rose gold, and then Sailors also use champagne gold. I'm sure other brands use a gold that's a little bit lighter or softer than yellow gold. But in terms of like just yellow gold versus silver trims, I prefer gold trims. Now, gold trims can sometimes be very bright and like in your face. And so for me, I do prefer a gold that is a little bit softer. Like my Aurora 88 is a rose gold. However, I feel like it just matches this pen really, really well anyways. And then we have pens like my Sailor Pro Gear with the champagne gold here, which is a lot softer than this kind of a gold. You can see there's slight, there's a slight difference in the level of yellow in the gold. So I do prefer a softer gold. I just know that I don't pick up silver trims as much, but in terms of how that preference has changed over time, I still prefer rose gold and champagne gold over any other trims. But I've also come to appreciate silver trims on many pens, such as these two blue turquoise pens. A lot of people, a lot of brands like to pair silver with blue, and that's totally fine. Like it's aesthetically it matches, but for me, I still like a little bit of sunlight in cool blue tones. All right, the third preference is posted or unposted. So a lot of people prefer to post their pens at all times, so they tend to buy pens that can post so that they have that option to post. And I can see, just talking with some of my friends who like posting, they would always be saying things like, oh, but what am I going to do with the cap if I can't post it? I might just lose it. That's very true. It could happen. Or it could just roll off. I do prefer to post my pens most of the time. If pens are long enough or heavy enough without posting, then I also write with them unposted. And sometimes a pen that posts really well and also unposted is really well balanced, then I kind of just go in between both posted and unposted. So again, specifically y'all know my favorite pen here, my Aurora Volterra. It is extremely comfortable posted and unposted. So sometimes I will write with it posted. Other times I will just take the cap off, have it in my other hands, and kind of just feel the cap in my other hands while I write with my right hand. So I do enjoy both posted and unposted. For much longer pens, Unposted, and shorter pens, Posted. Number 4 is Cartridge Converter or internal piston filler. So obviously, again, for this, there are many other filling systems like eyedropper, or you could just use a cartridge. There's also vacuum fillers, but I would consider vacuum fillers as an internal. So in terms of cartridge converter or internal piston, I prefer cartridge converters because they are a lot easier to clean. You could just take the converter out, use a bulb syringe, or a blunt syringe, clean that out, and then flush the nib unit under the water, put it in a ultrasonic overnight, easy peasy. And then as far as internal piston fillers, I only like when the nib unit can unscrew, come off, so that I can clean the inside of the pen really easily. And of course, because the nib unit is removable, I can just throw that into the ultrasonic cleaner as well and not have to like deep clean it myself. So again, my Aurora pens can do that. They are an internal piston filler, so you use the end knob to fill the ink into the inside chamber. So there's no cartridge converter for these types of pens. But the nib unit does unscrew, and so it's so easy to clean. You can clean it the normal way too by, twisting and turning the end knob 100 times if you want. But Aurora allows me to take off the nib unit. Other internal piston filler pens have that option too. Unfortunately, Leonardo does not have that option. You have to buy the tool to take out the end piston, which is, I just feel like it's a lot of work. The only piston fillers that I love using are Pelicans and Auroras, because then the cleaning is easier. Number 5, bottled inks or samples. Okay, so I first started with buying bottled inks because it just looks super pretty. As you can see, I have so many bottled inks over there, and I don't use all of them. True story, I'm sure many of you are guilty as well. But I realized that I'm not using all of this ink in this bottle. I don't like this color as much as I thought I would. And so I have switched to buying more samples because, let's face it, there are 100 inks made every single year, as well as 100 pens every year. And so I, am very easily tempted to try new inks. And so I would rather try them in samples over buying the full bottle. I do have about 400 ink sample vials, which I have organized really well, and I prefer to just continue doing that. I only buy ink bottles when I am running out of that sample that I really love and that I've used up. So if I haven't used it up and I have the urge to buy the ink bottle, I am going to force myself not to do that, because that is one of my rules for myself, not to buy an ink bottle until the ink sample has been used up and I have the urge to use it some more. Number 6. This one's not really in a this or that, but I'll still just do it anyways because I put it in there. I had subtle versus flashy pens. So you know how Pilot makes super minimalistic pens. So like their pens are very simple and most of the time black. So that's, I would consider subtle. And then the flashy pens are like the Esterbrook pens or Leonardo pens, like my Mother of Pearl. That would be flashy. Since I use my fountain pens mostly at home, I prefer flashy pens because I like seeing all the colors and it makes me very happy. So I pick up flashy pens way more than I do the simple, subtle pens. All right, number 7, do you prefer an ink window or do you not care? So this one is a little bit more specific to pens that are internally filled. So like internal piston fillers, vacuum fillers, because cartridge converters, you could just, remove everything and look at the level on the ink cartridge. So for me, I think functionally, ink window is really just the way to go. You have no other way to track ink except when there's no more ink flowing out of your pen. And in most cases, if you're just writing from home, that's fine. But if you're out and you're traveling and you don't even know the ink level, then most of the time you're going to have to fill up your pen all the way and hope that it will last you on your trip. But an ink level, like an ink window, really helps to know that, oh, I still have a lot of ink left. So, and as if the pen incorporates an ink window seamlessly into the pen, like Aurora or Pelicans, it's even better because it's super pretty. But I know that Visconti tried to make their Crystal Dream have a large ink window like on the body. It's not as handsome or pretty and beautiful as the Visconti Homo sapiens by itself, but that ink window has been useful for me. So like I do appreciate it. And then when it comes to like the Homo sapiens, I don't mind that it doesn't have an ink window because it's a really, really cool looking pen. And I write from home anyways, so I could just refill it whenever. Number 8, do you prefer twist cap, snap cap, or pilot vanishing point clickers? I would consider the clicker into the snap cap side of things because it's just super fast to open. And then whereas the twist cap, you have to turn a little bit, and every time you need to close, you have to screw it back in. I prefer this is a tough one. I do prefer twist caps because I do like the feeling and motion of doing the whole twisting your cap on and off. It's part of the whole experience of using fountain pens. If you snap, for fountain pens that are snap caps, it just kind of reminds me of, Bic ballpoint pens. Obviously it's not the same, but it's as quick and simple as those pens before I got into fountain pens. So I like the whole experience of a screw cap. Next one is gold nibs versus steel nibs, or gold nibs or steel nibs. I didn't mind steel nibs when I first started. I started with less expensive pens, and so it's all steel nibs. I didn't mind steel nibs because coming from writing with stiffer pens, steel nibs were just easy to get into. Now that I've been in this hobby, with fountain pens for a good three or so years now, I do notice a little bit of a difference in gold nibs versus steel nibs, especially like within brands. For example, my Leonardo nibs, the steel nibs are absolutely perfect. They write just fine. They are stiff with just the smallest amount of bounce because they are bigger nibs in general, number 6 nibs. And then the moment I started using gold nibs from Leonardo, I started to feel a difference in the way it feels as I'm writing on the paper. Obviously, there's a little bit more softness and bounce to gold nibs. Not as much as you'd expect it to be, but it's a good enough difference that I will say I prefer the gold nibs over the steel nibs. But I wouldn't discount any of my steel nibs. I still love writing with all of them. If we had to say gold versus steel, I'd say gold. Number 10, basic nib grinds or special custom grinds. So I am pretty basic when it comes to the nibs. 3 years in, I will say that this year I do want to try different nibs more. For the most part, in general, I do prefer the basic grinds like extra fine, fine, sometimes medium. I will consider Cursive Smooth Italic and Gina's Journaler nibs as a little bit on the, not basic, but the more general grinds. Like I can write with it on a daily basis, whereas say maybe an Architect or a Naginata Togi nib, those I can't use on a daily basis. So if I can use a nib on a daily basis, then for me personally, like it would kind of lean more towards the basic nibs. And so I prefer those over custom grinds. Again, once I do find a custom grind that I really, really love, then I probably will prefer that over the basic grinds. It's about, where I am at in my journey with fountain pens. So I probably just haven't delved deep enough into the custom grinds. But I will say that I love Journaler and custom Cursive Smooth Italic for nibs that are not the basics. Number 11 is, are you a planner or a journaler? So I, in the fountain pen world, it's not just fountain pens, it's inks, fountain pens, and paper. And so planners and journalers is where the paper comes in terms of the preferences here in my list. So I am more of a journaler. I love scrapbooking. I love creating aesthetically pleasing spreads that look beautiful and pretty. I love making cards with them to send to people for pen pal letters. And so I'm more of a journaler. I tried planning. I'm not really a planning person. The artistic parts of planning is what helped me try planning, if that makes any sense. And so bullet journaling is my way of journaling and planning. And that really was fun for me, but it was a lot. And so I prefer to journal where I can just write my thoughts, decorate the page, and have it be really nice. Number 12, and this is going to be controversial. Old Tomoe River paper or Sanzen? Old Tomoe River paper. I don't think I need to explain anymore. Number 13, soft or stiff gold nibs. So earlier I talked about how gold nibs being soft, and not all gold nibs are soft. Some gold nibs are super stiff, like Platinum, Pilot, Aurora. They're very, very stiff. I feel like a lot of people prefer their gold nibs to be soft and bouncy. I don't think I have a big preference towards one or the other, because I do seriously, absolutely love my stiff Aurora, Sailor, and Platinum nibs. I enjoy writing with them. But then the moment I write with a softer nib, like the Platinum's Soft Fine, which is a very different Platinum nib, or if I use a much softer, say my Gold Leonardo nibs, my Pelican nibs, they are very nice. It's a different experience, and it's very nice, but it's not something that I would say I love way more than my stiff gold nibs. So for me, I don't prefer one over the other. I like them both. Number 14, and this is an ink one: shading, sheening, or shimmer. So I started with loving all kinds of shimmers because I love sparkly things. I love sparkly pens. I love sparkly inks. They were great and all, but then having to clean it out of pens was always a hassle. Sometimes the shimmers would get stuck in the nibs or the feed, and then I have to prime it, and if it's not an easy pen to prime, and priming is when you like twist the knob or twist the ink cartridge converter so that you push the ink through the feed. That's priming it. So when I prime a pen so that the ink and shimmers will come out better, like that's just, it gets really annoying. It gets frustrating. Because of that, I have preferred shading inks over the other two S's. Some inks don't have any shading, sheening, or shimmer, and they're just like very basic inks. Those are nice too, but I do like an ink with a lot of character to it. So some shading to a lot of shading is good for me. A lot of shimmer inks tend to shade as well. Now, the reason I don't like sheen is because it's very saturated inks, and so they tend to be very dark inks, and I don't like dark inks. And then the sheen also can stay on the paper for a very long time. It'll smudge, it'll smear, and then on top of that, the sheen stays on your fountain pen feed. So if you see feeds where they're red and they have like this glaze of red or another hue on it, it's the sheen that will not leave. So I'm sure you could clean the sheen off, but sometimes you can't. So that's also another side effect of using heavily sheen inks that I don't like. Number 15, do you prefer brands or maker pens? So custom makers. So brands like let's say Conklin, Pilot, Platinum, Leonardo, those are brand names. And then maker pens like Papa J Studio, White Bear Pens, Zodiac Pen Co. Those very custom, one-off, unique pens. Most of the time I feel like people get into fountain pens through the brands. There are certain brands that I heavily align with because I love the aesthetics. I love the writing experience of the brand's pens. When it comes to custom maker pens, I think like it has to really catch my whole aesthetic and my whole requirements of a pen that brings me a lot of joy. And so for me to get a custom made pen, it has to have a design that's aesthetically pleasing and still functional. It has to have furnishing on it. So it's got to have rose gold or gold furnishing on it. And if it doesn't, I have recently found that I can add and accessorize very plain maker pens with, say rings or other accessories for roll stops that to make it look extremely beautiful. So like a friend on Instagram, Mixed Scribbles is her Instagram name, shared this lovely photo of her Just Turnings pen, which has no clip, nothing, just the basic, cap and pen body. And she added her own accessory on it to make it look extremely cute and pretty. I will, for this one, I will still say brand because I don't have any maker pens. I don't have as many maker pens as I do my brands. I have one maker pen, maybe two, and I don't use them as often. So for this question, I will say it has to go to brands for now. Number 16, limited editions or standard editions. So this one is, I do have a few things to say about this one. So if you're going to make a limited edition, one, number it. Okay, I would like it to be numbered. I'm not saying it needs to be like this, but if it's going to be a limited edition, having a limited number on there would be nice. Keep the limited runs to no more than 2 runs. If you run a limited edition 3, 4, 5, 6 times, it's no longer limited. It's just a standard pen at this point. I do like limited edition pens. Now I don't go above and beyond to buy all limited editions. I like to buy the limited editions that speak to me, they're my aesthetic, and the fact that it is limited just adds an extra cherry on top. But it's really the design that I, look for. And so there's a lot of standard editions where the designs are amazing. But for the most part, I do like the unique looking pens, and I do like having a unique pen that there's not that many out there. So the exclusivity of the limited editions is kind of enticing and nice. One isn't better than the other, but for my personal preference, I do like limited edition pens. Number 17, do you prefer new pens or used pens? Or no preference? I don't mind getting a used pen, especially if it's at a really good discount. I would buy that over a new pen any day. I'm not picky about having a new pen or having a pen that someone else already used. As long as they took care of the pen really well, I don't mind if it's used. If there's tons of scrapes and dings everywhere in the pen, then yes, of course, I will not buy that. Number 18, do you prefer demonstrator pens or non-demonstrators? So demonstrator pens include pens like TWSBI Ecos or TWSBI Diamond 580s. Those are pure demonstrator pens. So I would consider like this specific pen, you can see like it's still sparkly. It's got a lot of extra things going on, but it's very transparent. So like this one or the TWSBI Eco, to me, the only time I ever will use a demonstrator pen is when I want to see the pretty sparkling shimmer ink that's in it. If there's no sparkly shimmering ink, I don't really care for a demonstrator type pen. So yes, my preference would be non-demonstrator, but I don't completely hate them. I just don't like them. We'll say that. Number 19. We're almost to the end here, so 2 more. Number 19 is pen and ink match, or doesn't matter. Do you choose the ink to match your pen, or does that not matter to you? My, artistic side where I love to color match stuff to create things that are visually pleasing, that part of me says I need to match the ink with the pen. So, for example, this pen is my Leonardo Momento Zero Aster Bouquet. This is Wendy from Nibs and Flourishes, one of her newest pen from Endless Pens. It's got periwinkles, turquoise, pinky purples, whites. So it's got tons of shades of colors that I could choose from. But for example, if it was just this turquoise color, then I can choose between a tealy green, a blue, turquoise, sky blue, deep blue, even a bluish purple. So like I like colors that are that would come out nicely from this pen or complement the pen. Another complementing situation would be like if you have pens that are a bit more neutral, like browns, whites, ivory, and creams, like this color. I have a lot more colors that can complement it. Dusty pink, orange, brown, terracotta. I can also put in a turquoise or a teal in here, and it would kind of, you know, have a really nice complementing tone to it. I am a matchy-matchy ink pen person, so that is my preference. All right, last but not least, this one is vintage or modern pens. Let's just get this out of the way. I have never tried or have any vintage pens. Now, vintage pens are pens that are from the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, you know, like older style pens that are still around. And modern pens are all the pens that we have nowadays. I would say that the TWSBI is a modern pen, Sailor is a modern pen. I prefer modern pens, of course, because I only have modern pens. But I like modern pens that have a somewhat vintage vibe and inspiration. Leonardo has a lot of vintage inspirations in their pens. So like you can see in this one, the cap band there is very large and it's got geometric shapes that are reminiscent of some vintage styles and feel. And even the shape itself with the conical ends is kind of a vintage vibe. And so while these pens look absolutely new and amazing, they just have sort of subtle vintage vibe to it, and that's what I like about it. Now, sometimes I also think of vintage pens as like just those basic black pens or more brownish. So I also correlate like my Aurora pens here because they are cigar shaped. A lot of vintage pens are cigar shaped, I think, and just the aesthetic of these being browns and beige toned gives me a little bit of the vintage vibe. Pens that can look vintage, but you know is modern, like that's I really like that kind of a pen. All right, well that is all 20 of my preferences for fountain pens, and those are my preferences. Let me know down in the comments what you prefer for each one of these categories, or whichever one you want to share about. And if, you know, have they changed over time, or are you still preferring, you know, the same thing that you liked at the beginning? So yes, I would love to hear all of you guys share your preferences and have a conversation down in the comment section. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I did making it. Remember, leave a like and subscribe. Share my video with others. That would be so awesome. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.